Today we'll continue the Maimer Nasat Liiriaich that was said by the Rebbe on Yud Beis Tammuz Tafshin Yud Aleph. We're continuing to explain the idea of the Avodas HaNisyonos. Yesterday we began to speak about the concept of Avodas HaBirurim, which is the purpose for which our soul came down into this world, is in order to elevate and refine the physical world. And that refinement takes place in one of three ways. In the general way, there's three aspects or three ways that this refinement can take place. Firstly, there's in the actual Avodas HaBirurim, the regular and the normal type is Dein Hanyan Lei, to elevate and refine a physical object. We make a bracha, we use it to serve Hashem, we free that spark that's in it, that spark that's imprisoned in it, that isn't being allowed to express itself and to say, here I am, I exist because Hashem made me, and rather it's being forced to live through and to be able to accept the false idea that the object is giving off, which is that it's an existence on its own. When we show no, it belongs to Hashem, no, it's created by Hashem, its whole purpose is to serve Hashem, we're freeing that spark. We're connecting the higher and the lower, the physical and spiritual. That's the idea of Dira B'Tachtenim. Point 2, Dein Loi Hanyan Lei, the things which we are not meant to do. When there's something that its spark is deeper inside, it's more hidden, because it's giving sustenance to something that's against Hashem. Something that's alluring people to use it in order to go against what Hashem wants. When we don't do what it calls upon us to do, when we say, no, you're not an existence that can exist against Hashem and allow people to do something against Hashem, because I won't listen. I'm not going to go against Hashem. In that way we're freeing the spark. That's all dealing with something that exists. There's a third type of Avodas HaBirurim, which is the deepest type, and that's called the Avodah of Nisyonos, test. Now a test can take place in any type of situation, but the test aspect of it, that's something deeper than actually dealing with something in order to elevate the spark, either by doing it or not doing it. What does a nisayon mean? What does a test mean? Simple meaning of a test. We know that Avraham Avinu was tested by Hashem with 10 tests. We know that the Jewish people tested Hashem. The concept of a test is checking out the one that's being tested in order to see if he's actually what he's supposed to be. Like a test in school. The concept of a test, especially with regards to Hashem testing, isn't that the tester, in this case Hashem, needs to prove the point, because he knows the truth. When a teacher in school tests you, the teacher in school doesn't know whether you know the material that you're supposed to know or not. When Hashem tests a person, he knows what's going on. When Hashem tested Avraham Avinu, he knew the facts. But the test is rather to bring out, to actually cause the one who's tested to express the truth and to bring out the righteousness and the goodness of the one who's being tested. When Hashem tested Avraham Avinu, he knew that Avraham Avinu would stand by the test. That was the point of it. So that's the concept of a test. Now that's why nisayon also comes from another word, which is nes. Nes means a banner. There's the words, Oriv Nisi, I will lift up my banner. a nes, a miracle that happens, lifts up the nature of the world. A nisayon is there in order to lift up the person that's being tested, through the fact that the person overcomes that test. That's the general idea. And so the concept and the point of the Maimer is that there are tests, and again, as we mentioned, that's why the Friedrich Rebbe sent the Maimer to Russia, where the Jews had to overcome then the tests and the hardships for fighting for Yiddishkeit. And the concept is, there are tests, and this is how we overcome these tests. Now the Maimer is going to explain the deeper meaning behind the whole concept of tests. So let's start first a little bit the ideas of the Maimer, and then get to another point of how we do it that comes out from the days of Gimel and Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz. And then as we go through the Maimer, that we can see what the lesson for us in our time in general and specifically in every person's life. The pasuk that the Rebbe quotes in the beginning of the Maimer, which is what the Friedrich Rebbe quoted in his Maimer. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Nosato Lireicha, and we bring the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, the translation of Yonasan ben Uziel, that helps us understand the pasuk. Nosato Lireicha yahavta ledachlayach. You've given to those who fear you, which generally refers to the Jewish people, the ones who are in awe of Hashem, who have the Yiras Shamayim, the Bittul to Hashem, but specifically to those who are going to be tested, as we'll see as we continue onwards. That the avodah of being tested is connected specifically with Yiras Shamayim, with Bittul, submitting one's will to Hashem, which is generally connected with the idea of Yiras Shamayim, of heaven. Nosato leirecha, you gave to those who fear you. Nes, a test. Lihis noises, and the way the Targum says, Nisa, liis nasa, a test to be tested, or more specifically, a test with which to become uplifted. Mipnei koishet tzela. Why? Because of the koishet, the kushte, the truth of Avram, which is for the world. The first of the believers, the first Jew in the world who expressed his faith in Hashem is Avram Avinu, and Hashem tested him. Hashem put obstructions in the way so that Avram can become uplifted and that he can demonstrate to all his faith and submission to Hashem. That's the test. That truth of Avram is what gives every one of us the power to continue on with this idea of test, with this idea of Avodah of Nisyonis. Now, an interesting thing that the Rebbe brings over here in the Maimer is that the Avodah of Nisyonis is specifically in the time of Ikvus and Mashiach, in the last moments of Galus. In Ikvesa, these foot, the heels of Mashiach, the end, the last generation of Galus, and in that itself, in the very last time, and the very last moments of the darkness of Galus. And the Rebbe explains here a very interesting thing. In Galus Mitzrayim, there were also tests. But in Galus Mitzrayim, the tests served to confuse them. Leishamuel Moshe mikoitze ruach u'mi'aveda kasha. The hard work, the short-spiritedness, the fact that they were being enslaved in Egypt, the tests that they were going through, only served to confuse them and to not enable them to be able to see the truth and to be able to listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because at that time, they weren't yet prepared, they weren't yet given the proper power and strength to be able to overcome the tests. The Rebbe even goes a step further. Mitzrayim is the root of all the other Galiyos. All the Galiyos, all the exiles are called by the name of Mitzrayim because they all come from the Galus Mitzrayim. And just as in Galus Mitzrayim, there was a test that the Jewish people were not able to, they didn't have the proper power to be able to overcome the tests at that time. Likewise, most of the other Galiyos, it's the same. Because the power to overcome the tests was given specifically to us in the last moments of Galus, in the end of Galus, because we are the ones who are able to withstand this idea of the Avodas HaNisyonos. Why specifically us? Why specifically in the last moments and the end of Galus is there this Nisyonos and is there the power to overcome it? And that's because the main idea of the Galus is to refine and elevate the sparks of godliness that there are inside the world. And therefore in the very end of Galus, it's our job and mission to deal with the sparks that are in deepest, as we'll explain in the Maimer, through the Avodah of Nisyonos. And that's why specifically now we're given the power to be able to do that, because that is our Avodah now, to deal with this concept of a Nisayon of tests. Now what is this idea of a test? And what's the idea of the power of Avodas HaNisyonos that wasn't given in the past and that's given specifically now? So that the Rebbe quotes, that the Friedrich Rebbe explains in the Maimer, that in the Avodas HaBirurim, in refining and elevating the sparks, we're dealing with an object. We're dealing with food, either by yes eating it, or by not eating it. We're either dealing with an object and saying, I'm going to use it, or not use it. But both of them are dealing with the object with which we are refining and elevating the spark. Meaning, there's a godly spark that gives life and gives sustenance and causes this object to exist. I'm now taking this object and using it to reveal the godly spark by revealing that its true existence is godliness. And again, either by using it or by not using it. A Nisayon isn't an object. A Nisayon is a state of mind. A test is a state of mind. The fact that my state of mind tells me that I'm not able to do it. There's no object there to deal with. And the reason is because there's nothing, it's not a true existence. The whole point of the test is that we're dealing with something that doesn't really exist. It all exists in my mind, although that existence is real. Meaning, and like the Rebbe says, that we know that it says that a test isn't a real existence. The Rebbe says it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. When the Jewish people were working in Egypt, the hard work was considered the test. The hard work existed. The Egyptian overseers, they existed. The whips, the bricks that they had to pick up, they all existed. But the state of mind, the servitude, the state of mind of the fact that I am now submitted to this existence, that is the test. And that's something which is merely something which is in a person's mind. And in a certain sense, it feels stronger and more powerful than anything else. And that's why in Mitzrayim, they couldn't deal with it. That took them away from the ability to listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. But in our time, how do we fight it? Not like other things by dealing with the thing, but rather since it's something which is a state of my mind, so it's by going deeper into myself and revealing within myself my true essence and my true power with which I can overcome this test. And this is something which in Mitzvah Hashem we're going to learn more and more as we go through the Maimer. But I just want to quickly mention 2 points. First of all, this is how the Friedrich Rebbe during the days that led up to Yud Beis, or to Gimel Tammuz specifically, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was imprisoned, and he said he decided by himself he's going to look at them like they don't exist. He's not going to give them the reality. He's not going to enable them to exist by the fact that he's going to, in his mind, show that power that they're non-existent. And we're going to go, Mr. Hashem, more into that idea. And also we see that by Avraham Avinu, the first Jew. And as well as the fact that now we're in Chavav Sivan. Going to Chav Zayin Sivan. Yesterday was Chav Hei Sivan, the day that Gviha B'Msisa, back in the beginning of the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, of the second Beis Hamikdash, when different nations of the world came with claims against the Jewish people. And the way that he refuted it was not in diplomatic ways, was not in political ways, was rather by standing strong and saying, this is what the Torah says, this is what Hashem says, and this is the reality. This concept, Mr. Hashem, we're going to continue more next time.